what have been your very first impressions of meeting Poku? Now it's only been 2 games. I'm not expecting like his full life story, but what has been your initial impression of getting to know Aleksej?
Yeah, Poku's been the best in the limited time that we've had him. He's been a professional since he was 14, which is crazy to think,
Wow.
But it's so he's had obviously a ton of professional experience, and he's played some really important and big minutes for Oklahoma City over the years. So, I think the biggest thing that stems from that when I first met him is just his overall professionalism. He comes in, he has a routine. You know what I mean? And I think the biggest thing from a coaching standpoint is he's so dynamic. There's so many different ways you can use him. He handles really well. He's a really good facilitator and playmaker for others. He can stretch the floor and shoot it. So as a coach, you get excited when you have the opportunity to work with someone like that, because you get to explore different things and try to kind of challenge who they are from a skill set standpoint and just see all the different things they can do. But like day one, I brought him into my office and we were talking a little bit, and I asked him, I was like, what areas of the floor do you feel comfortable? Do you prefer, handoffs, pick and rolls? Like what is it that you feel the most comfortable doing, so that, throughout games we can make sure to give you some of those so that you can feel comfortable within our group. And the first thing he said to me is, don't worry about me. He's like, I want to ease myself into your group here in the locker room. I want to get to know guys better, and I just want to play off of them. And that's something that really stood out for me, was just his character, his overall professionalism. And, he did a really good job in those first couple games with us, just facilitating and playmaking, helping his teammates play better. And, that's something that Coach Cliff talks about all the time, is it's not just about how you play well, but do others function and play well when they're on the floor with you. And I think with Poku, our group is naturally just better when he's on the floor. And then he's also been able to make some big plays for us down the stretch, like in the Delaware game. He made a couple big shots for us down the stretch that helped us, when they were making a run. So he's been awesome. Obviously, incredibly excited for the opportunity to coach him and be around him, and just continue to. Obviously, he's got to get back in shape. He hasn't played a ton recently, so that's a big piece of this as well. But just putting him in different positions and using his dynamic abilities to really help our team function better is great.
And you mentioned about you're asking him there about like, how is he most comfortable? What are his answers? Like, how does he feel? What was that conversation? What did you kind of decide was the optimal way to get the best out of him, at least in the short term?
Yeah, so like I said, like he didn't really give me a lot because he was very selfless. He was very much continue to play the way you guys are playing. I'll find my way into what your group is doing. However, I've spent a lot of time. I've talked to people from Oklahoma City. I've spent a lot of downtime just watching film on him, because obviously he's very intriguing with all of these different things. We start him at the 4 mostly, on the perimeter, because he can handle, but we will play him a little bit at the 5 as well. A small ball 5, I think, is something that creates a ton of advantages for us, and it makes it really difficult for other teams. But we'll put him all over the floor. Like I said, he'll handle in DHOs. He'll come off of pin downs. We'll have small set screens for him flying off of pin downs. And put mostly 5 men who are guarding him in positions that they're not used to, right? Guarding a shooter coming off a pin down is something that 5 men don't do a ton of. So being putting him in those situations, he's going to handle in pick and rolls where he may be at the 4 and the 5 is setting. He may be at the 5 and we may have our point guard set a screen for him, so, we're trying to do different things that utilize his length, utilize his, he has a really good feel for the game, his ability to read defenses, all of that stuff. He's really good at naturally. So again, just the different ways that we can put him on the floor with the ball, I think is great. And then he does a good job of spacing the floor as well. He doesn't always have to have the ball in his hands. He's a great screener. He's a good, what we call connector or action creator. He can swing the ball and follow and slip out and cause confusions. He can roll because of his size against teams that'll switch with him. He can do all those things. And I could go on for another 15 minutes just telling you all the different ideas that come to my head. But again, his dynamic, how he can handle and shoot, but then also screen and roll and all of these different things is what makes him so intriguing. And obviously why Charlotte had interest in him and bringing him in, is to see all of these different things that he can potentially do. So that's kind of been, something that I've been trying to do as well, is just get a bunch of different stuff on film to show his capabilities.
Would you say he's one of the most unique players, at his size and his skill that you've had the opportunity to coach? Is there anyone else who comes into mind if you look back in your coaching time as someone like who is similar, just in terms of that there's not many people like them?
He's definitely unique in that sense. Just because of his overall length and being, as tall as he is. I think that in itself is probably the most unique piece. We've had guys that have had stints, with us in Greensboro that are, Jarrell Brantley was someone we had a couple years ago that's a little bit bigger, that plays in that kind of power forward 5 position that can handle, that cause some matchup issues for other teams. I think about Charlotte a little bit, and like, I'm in no means, comparing him to like a Miles Bridges, but, Miles is a bigger wing that can handle that. Again, you see it with Cliff, that they set, pick and rolls with Smalls and just trying to create those different advantages. Guys like that, but no one ever that is just like the skill set of him and like his ability to play make. And he's absolutely like, he could get his own if he needs to, but he's definitely like pass first, facilitator, organizer. We're on defense. He gets the rebound. He's leading the transition break for us. You don't see a ton of that. So he's definitely unique from that standpoint.
And then we obviously talked about all the multifaceted ways you can use him on offense and defensively. For him, what are some of the areas that you think that he's got left to work on? Obviously, you talked about getting back in basketball shape a little bit. What are the other parts of the game you think you're trying to kind of round out here?
Yeah, I think for him, it's obviously just a little bit more consistency with his shot, I think, is the biggest thing. His last season in Oklahoma City, before he got injured, he was actually shooting the ball at a pretty high clip. I think he was roughly 37% from 3, which is a good number. You want to keep that at that level. I think that's something that he can always continue to work on. Being a screen setter, obviously his advantage in a lot of senses is slip outs, right? Or these things that cause confusion because of his size. But like if their teams are switching with him and we like matchups, like he's got to be a really fundamental screener that does allow our guards to get downhill if they're going to stay in coverage with him. So just things like that. I think he reads the game at a super high level, but that can always be something that you develop. Again, just letting him handle, I think, is something that, he did a lot of screen setting when he was in Oklahoma City, and they did get him the freedom to handle some, but putting more of that on his plate, I think, just as more of a primary handler, those are all things that we got to continue to work on. And then defensively, obviously keeping him in coverage, but also if we're going to switch him some, just understanding different matchups and how he can guard versus switching, versus if we're going to keep him back in coverage and use his length more at the rim and rebounding. So, it's just kind of all over the place right now. And again, as he plays more with us, as I see more of him in person, those can obviously change. But just watching the film on him and having him for a couple of games, those are kind of the things that stick out to me.
No, very interesting. Certainly an interesting guy to watch here, and hopefully get some more opportunity with the Swarm for the rest of the season. Obviously, only played 2 games so far, but how many games have you got left roughly? I know there's a month left, but
roughly 10.
Okay, so still a good portion of games there. That'd be good to watch.